Hey everyone, I'm Ryan the Coherent, and today's gonna be a little bit different. I'm coming off the end of a sinus infection, and I'm pretty much fine now. My voice sounds more or less normal, but I still grossly overslept today because of all the Benadryl I'm taking, and as a consequence, I don't have much time to record. So for today, I'm gonna upload one short video where I test something, and tomorrow I'm gonna upload a video I never got around to editing for Scythia, and then on Thursday we should be back to normal, or on Friday we should be back to normal rather. But today, I want to test what you're looking at in this video right here. This is so bizarre. These chariots, in my last episode of the Seleucid Empire, charged loose formation hoplites, and I'm not paying attention to this. I assume they're dying. I'm just putting my units in formation while other stuff happens. But those guys were winning. They weren't just winning a little bit. These fucking chariots melted, got completely, utterly destroyed. And watching it, I strongly suspect I know why, now that I'm paying attention to it. They're not charging. In fact, they're not even moving as a whole unit. They are marching in formation into the Phalanx. But, be that as it may, I still wouldn't expect militia hoplites to be anywhere this effective. So I want to test this a couple times. I want to see if Phalanx formation is more effective against chariots in loose formation, or if maybe Phalanx formation is just insanely effective against chariots in general, or if that was all bad pathfinding. Because, this is so fucking far from what you would ever expect to happen. Chariot generals versus the literal worst Phalanx in the game, and they get obliterated. I wouldn't think that was possible, no matter how much you stack the deck. So, let's open Rome to the war and actually go test this in some custom battles. So this is going to be a really simple custom battle to test. Grassy flatlands, just a big open plain. I have a single unit militia hoplites, they have a single unit of Egyptian chariot general. They only ever have the one kind of general, so this is whatever Egypt was using, this is equivalent. And let's just go have them charge at me in an open field and see how it goes. So an interesting thing I just learned is when you're in Phalanx formation, you actually can't enable loose formation at all. So I'm gonna pull these guys out to about 3 thick. And let's go with 4 thick, loose formation's pretty wide. Put them in loose, start Phalanx, and yeah, let's just have them charge me now. No, don't do this. That's so much less good for me. Now I have to actually rotate? You assholes. Okay. That's more like how I won.
Is running away. This is no way for a leader to behave, but in battle, it is beyond belief.
I'm sorry.
The enemy army is
I noticed this number started going down, and my militia hoplites were surrounded by chariots running in circles. End battle, how many died? Almost all of them, 30 out of 49.
Not that of mortals like us.
So that's actually 30 out of 48 because there's 2 on each chariot and the general's extra. So I killed 15 out of 28 chariots almost instantly and only lost 22 of my men. What the fuck was that? All right, let's go test this again. All right, so they're doing the same thing they did last time. I'm gonna rotate to the side a little bit. I'm gonna drop even thinner this time to make sure that I get surrounded a little bit less. They're doing some sick things over here. Not quite sure what that little horse movement they were doing was.
The gods be
just
praised.
instantly.
The general is dead. His men know their...
I lost 8 men and killed all but 2 of them with the loose formation militia hoplites. Apparently I lost some more after we continued the time, but wow. Restart battle. Let's do that in normal formation and see if it has the same results. So again, we're doing about 3 deep, and by all rights, this should have the same results, I feel like. After all, surely loose formation is worse at fighting chariots, not better. So this should go the same way if this game makes any sense.
The gods be
Yep.
praised. The enemy general is dead.
So this checks out to my mind that Phalanxes are the hard counter to chariots. I'm fine with this. This makes perfect sense to me. But why is it not the counter to cavalry? We're gonna fight that exact same fight, except against a single Roman general instead. So, you'd think this would go the exact same way, or at least pretty similarly, right? Game Y. But yeah, let's try that again.
Such a day, such a defeat.
So unfortunately, after several failed tests trying to do this in the middle, I realized I have to come corner camp to even test against the Roman generals. The reason for that is that they'll walk up to my phalanx and just murder it. They will get to in front of it where the spears are and just trot around behind it. And the phalanx can't rotate as fast as they can circle, so eventually they'll be behind it, charge in, and kill them all. So I have to corner camp to even try to test this. Alright, so we're in the corner. We're playing super honestly. They don't seem like they know what to do about this. Now that they can't circle around, we're like, oh, fuck. Huh. Maybe if I walk forward, they'll be more okay with fighting me?
Ready.
Well, this is hardly a fair test now that they aren't charging.
Ready. Ready.
Well, that's obviously not a fair test for this. What are you guys doing? Like, half of them took out their knives and walked after them. But in spite of that, in a straight fight, militia hoplites, I actually won despite losing my general. In a straight fight, militia hoplites with phalanx facing forward do seem to beat the enemy general. So what the fuck keeps happening in my campaign if this is how it's supposed to look? Like, the only reason this was hard to test is because I keep getting flanked. But in cities, I will have hoplites like this in corridors with walls on either side of them, and the general will like walk off the square and through 2 units of them.
Victory worthy of a great general.
So what I've learned from this, I guess, is that phalanxes are just really, really good when they go off correctly. And I guess they usually never are. I don't know why they aren't, but they just aren't. Because I'm pretty sure that 20 phalanxes against 10 chariots, I crush them, right? This is equivalent army cost. I didn't want to change the cost to go higher. But I'm pretty sure all these chariots are going to come in and get fucking murdered. And I just wanted to like do this while I wait for the video to end, because I'm very confused. Because against generals, phalanxes were winning too, even though that's never been my experience in the actual fights. But like, fucking look at this. It's so... They're not fighting me right now, so it's not as obvious, but the 2 that touched me instantly broke. And honestly, their arrows are doing a lot less than I would expect them to. But yeah, apparently phalanxes are exactly as strong as I've been thinking they should be, but for various reasons they keep underperforming, and I don't know what those reasons must be, just that they must be happening. Because regularly, in city sieges, I will set up 2 phalanxes in the same hallway in the city, and they'll nearly completely get wiped out by an enemy general without actually having a guaranteed kill on the unit. Oh wait, I can move forward. We should do that. Ah, so if you're marching, they're complete trash. It looks to me like there's some sort of text on the militia hoplites maybe, or on phalanxes rather, where if they're moving at all, maybe they get massive penalties to simulate the inflexibility of hoplites. Because I walked into them and then routed. Let's replay that and see if that's just because I've been taking arrows for a really long time. It might be that they have low morale, so moving forward into a combat causes them to actually break immediately because they've been getting shot with arrows, they're losing their minds. So there are 2 things that could have happened there. One is that I had very low morale because I've been getting shot by arrows while I was talking, and starting the fight caused them to rout. The other is that to simulate the inflexibility of phalanxes, a unit in phalanx formation receives massive penalties if it's considered to be moving at all. And in Rome Total War, not only do you move your units a lot, but very frequently, especially in cities, you'll have someone just run forever. There'll be one guy that gets split off from the group and he just runs in a circle, and your unit just has the walking icon for the rest of the fight. And if that's the case, I'm willing to bet that having that walking icon is enough to get that penalty. So this time, I'm just going to move forward immediately, and I want to see if everyone routes just like last time, or if they actually fight, because they're in phalanx formation while they march like this. And yeah, they're breaking this time, instantly. Huh. Let's test this with only 1 unit of phalanx. I decided that rather than using 1 unit, I'll use 3 because I'm trying to march forward, so it's a lot easier for it to go wrong. Because this should still be a landslide victory if it works the same way as it's been working in my previous test, and a landslide loss if it works the same way it worked in that test. I think it has to have something to do with Phalanxes getting some massive penalties while walking. The only thing that matters here is I need to make sure I never stop moving towards them. I want to be absolutely sure that I'm walking when this fight continues. Because if there are penalties that apply while you're moving, this should fail. Nope.
The gods have filled the enemy general with fear. The enemy are utterly beaten. This is a
I've got
crush.
nothing. Because my units aren't losing the fight, right? They're breaking. And those tests where I had massive losses, it's because everyone routed immediately before the fight even really started. Which might just be that morale is weird. That because they have only 2 morale, they're breaking as soon as the fight starts. Because now there are enough enemies for them to really feel pressured. So let's try it with a unit that has... Well, that's the problem, isn't it? There's no unit I can use that is, you know, trash, but has good morale. So I'm going to use a couple of silver shields versus like 6 chariots. That sounds perfectly reasonable to me at a glance. Because I honestly don't really fully understand what's happening in these tests that resulted in some of my fights being like landslide victories, but others being crushing defeats. And this is not going to work out because my units just aren't in phalanx. Oh, they broke instantly, actually. So that to me looked like another point in favor of the theory that when they're outnumbered by more units of chariots than they have units of militia hoplites, and they're taking ranged fire, their morale breaks immediately. Obviously, I controlled it poorly because I'm just like not really super focused today. But I'm going to test it one time with just this unit, and the results should be the same. And in that case, I feel like I can draw some conclusions if the result's the same. If the result's different, I have a lot of questions. So the AI is definitely behaving differently against this unit than it was against my militia hoplites. Unfortunately, right now I'm just getting horse archered, and I'm not able to test these units in combat. I just want to do science. Please stop.
The enemy
Yeah.
general flees. Press forward.
The moment I actually got into combat, I instantly won. Okay, so I can draw a couple conclusions from this about morale. First off, the number of units in these units doesn't affect your morale. The unit itself might be upset over having taken casualties, but you don't get the outnumbered penalty for anything other than the number of unit cards on each side. Things like concerned over the number of enemies appear like something must be happening, where you have much weaker morale when there are more enemies, even if you have more units as well. Because my units were routing so instantly in that large-scale test I was doing. I'm gonna be honest, all this testing just made me deeply confused, because all this testing is how I remembered phalanxes working versus cavalry. And according to these custom battles, it's how it still works. But then I put a phalanx in a corridor in a city and they fucking lose to the enemy general consistently. And I've been testing this with the literal worst phalanx in the game. I don't know what to say. I don't know why the large-scale test failed so dramatically. I don't know why the large-scale test failed the way it did by routing. It must be massive morale penalties from taking more arrows, like maybe the enemy is focus firing one unit and then the others are chain routing. It must be something like that. I can explain that. So I understand why the large-scale test failed. And looking at the small-scale test, they all make perfect sense. Phalanxes counter cavalry and they counter chariots even more than cavalry. Checks out. It just doesn't line up with my experience in the campaign of I put a phalanx in the corridor, it gets charged by the enemy general, and it dies. Let's go test this against an enemy general unit that has like a sword and 2 units of experience. Oh, well, I kept my silver shield pikeman. It doesn't matter because I'm very convinced the result would have been the same anyway. So let's wrap this up, I suppose. I haven't figured out exactly why this happened in that video, because the problem has always been that what happened in that video isn't coinciding with what I've been doing in the rest of my campaign. So what happened in that video is getting confirmed pretty aggressively now. Like, that's exactly what I thought a phalanx would look like versus cavalry.
Fear makes a
But
home in
I can
our
check
enemy's house.
any video of mine that I've uploaded,
The enemy show their
and those
true
motherfuckers drive
Fear not,
right through the
soldiers.
center of my
Only
formation
frightened
and just
rats
disrupt the
running
phalanx
from our men.
completely in the campaign map. So if anyone has an answer to me as to why what's happening on the campaign is so often different from what's happening here, I'd really appreciate it. Because after all this testing, I've discovered that I don't know why most of the time generals are an unstoppable nightmare that plow right through my phalanx. But according to this test in a vacuum and what happens very rarely in the campaign map, they shouldn't be. They should hit a phalanx and lose, because that's what makes sense. I was expecting to find out that like loose formation phalanxes versus chariots were some sort of outlier, but according to this testing, it's very consistently not the case. And for the sake of honesty, let's go do that again with the hoplite militia. Because I haven't been using phalanxes, I've been using hoplites.
Orders completed, Commander.
But anyway, everything I've said pretty much holds true regardless of how this test goes, especially if they do this shit and wait to charge in so that they can walk at a slow pace instead. Or I guess they can wait for me to walk into them, it's all gonna be the same shit. But it's just deeply confusing. This doesn't, like, that was closer to what I was expecting. Although I don't know why this keeps happening.
Move, move.
This is
Yeah,
a dark
that took
night.
me like controlling that horribly to even be
The
close.
enemy has
Average
beaten our
defeat.
army.
I don't know. The more I test this, the more I think I must be fucking up the control of my phalanxes. Not in like some obvious way where I'm misplaying, but some way where Rome Total War is not agreeing with me on what I've told my units to do. There must be something happening on the campaign map very often where my units are not properly in formation against the charging cavalry, but it looks like they are. I don't know. I haven't answered my questions in this. Well, I did. I answered my initial question, which is, should loose formation hoplites be chariots? And the answer is, oh god, yeah, they should destroy them. So should tight formation hoplites, and so should any formation phalanxes. And also, they should beat generals cavalry too. But that just raises the question of, well then why the fuck haven't they? Regardless, I'm not in a great enough state of mind to analyze this any further. I've been rather coherent. Tomorrow, I'll be uploading an episode of Scythia that I never got around to editing. And by Friday, we should be back to our normal upload schedule, which for right now is Seleucid Empire in the morning, Scythia at night. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but whatever. I hope you liked the video, and I'm sorry for the disruption to my usual schedule these past few days. And I'll see you in the next one.